Alright, so in lesson 4 we're going to create an object, specifically a quote object to hold the quote and the author. And on top of that we're going to get our project to conform to the model view controller design pattern, which is commonly used in a lot of object-oriented languages, of which Swift is one. And so speaking of, I'd like to go over a little bit about object-oriented languages, since we are going to create an object here. They're based on creating objects, which are really just instances of classes. So think of it as like, a class is an object. They're basically the same thing. So don't want to overcomplicate things too much. And these classes, they're modified by methods that are also called functions. So basically, a function is like a big, programming term that can apply to a lot of things. A method would be a function within a class. So the functions that we've used inside our class declaration here in the table view controller are indeed methods, and they're functions at the same time. This vocabulary is something that is valuable to know if you're going in on a job interview or something like that, but practically when you're applying it, you don't really need to remember this stuff. But again, variables within a class can be called attributes or properties. Also, fields is another one they use. And I just listed some other popular languages that are object-oriented. And as you can see, most of the big ones, if not all of them, are object-oriented. Which is great. If Swift is the first language you're learning, you could find it easy to transition over into these other languages. Or if you know one of these languages, hopefully you'll find Swift doable, and a lot of what I've said would be very boring to you so far. So let's go back to our project, and we're going to create a class or object. And to do that, we're going to go New File, and we just want a Swift file. I want to do Cocoa Touch class for this one. And we're going to call it quote. And make sure you're targeting quotes app, the checkbox is checked and everything. And so now we're in, and we're going to create our own class here. And we're not going to need the superclass for this one. We are creating our own object. And that object will be called quote. And in here we're going to put all the instance variables for the quote object. And we'll let quote text declare it as a string. Let author name declare it as a string. Now you might ask, because we're going to use actually a lot of different quotes in here, so why would we use a let constant as opposed to a variable? Because we're going to change the quotes, and we're going to display different ones. And that's because we're not actually modifying any of the quotes or the authors in the app itself. We're just displaying each one, and we're going to create an array of these quotes that are standalone. And also it saves memory using a let constant versus a variable. And in an array we're going to be using a lot of them, so we just want to kind of save some memory wherever we can, even though this isn't going to be memory intensive, just a couple table view controllers. Now the thing is with a class is that you have to initialize the class for it to be an object. And for that we're going to call the init. And for parameters, we're going to throw in a couple text, which is going to be both strings. Author also string. And you can either leave this space here or not. I just kind of like having the the balance on both sides. It doesn't really matter. A lot of people are finicky, about indents and stuff, and I'm no different. But just whatever suits you, whatever works best, whatever helps you remember it in your mind the best, I guess. So next we're going to take the quote text and make that equal to the text that we've initialized here in the string. Then we're going to take the author name, and we're also going to make that equal the author in the string. And so now we're going to create an array of these quotes. And for that, just for me, so that I have all the quotes in one place that's separate from the object itself, I'm going to create a new file called quote array. And again, it'll be a Swift file targeting quotes app, group quotes app, and we're going to go quote array. So now that is created. And again, we're creating our own class here. And this one's going to be called quote array. And then in here, we're going to create a variable that is the array itself. And it's just an array of the quote objects. That's what we're telling this variable here, is that you need to initialize an array of quote objects. And now, down here in the list, we're going to append them when we initialize the object. So we don't need parameters. And just in the init statement, we do need parentheses though. We don't need parameters, but we do need parentheses. And in the statement, we're going to get list.append. And it's going to be quote element. And when you start the parentheses, it should fill in text and author. And so what's our first one going to be? You guys can do, whatever you'd like. The first one that I thought of was "I'll Be Back" by the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know if this is a copyright infringement or what. It's for educational purposes, guys. Don't come after me, Governor. I know how hard you work out. I've seen the YouTube videos, and I don't want a piece. So please, just message me, and I'll take it off if it's a big deal. But it's educational, so I actually looked this up because I wanted to use some things from Disney movies in my videos, but I just didn't because I know what hawks they are about the copyright stuff. So I just erred on the side of caution, but apparently for education I can use these things. Now, ran over, back to creating our new quote array. And gonna be yeah, this one's a little bit nicer. I just figured with the cheesy "I'll be back" thing to start with, I figure I should have something a little deeper in the next one. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill out this array. Okay, so now it's filled out. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next step. And in the main storyboard, we have our cell that we already used, hello world, and we've used the number array, and now we want to use the author part of this quote array that we've made. And in order to do that, I'm going to go up here, and where it says let number array equal so and so and so and so, I'm going to say variable array, or I like to be specific, author array equals quote array dot list, which, oh no, we have to put the parentheses because when you put the parentheses, you say go into that class and pull out, whether it's a variable or a function or something that's within the class, or as we've talked about, attributes, properties, which are variables, and methods, which are functions. So you can see the errors that are flying up here, which is a gift and a curse from Xcode. You know, here we're going to help you, but we want to just pop up every red error in your face at the same time. Love it. But next, let's go ahead and we're going to return the author array that we've created, .count, same way we did the number array, and it should just pull from there and pull it up pretty quickly. And then for the cell text label .text, we want to put the name of the author, so we're going to go into the author array, and in the bracket we're going to do the index path.row thing we did earlier, treat it as though we did the earlier array, and then it's going to be .author name, and we're going to return the cell. Everything looks good, and let's see how it went. Now, as you can see, we have our list of authors, and if you copied mine and Mark Twain is there twice, that's part of it. We're gonna fix that bug later, but everything is everything's working the way that we planned on doing it. So next thing we're gonna do is conform our app. We're gonna close this simulator, and we're gonna conform our app to the model view controller design pattern. And before we go into that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So here the model view controller divides the project into 3 connected parts, which is the model, which is the app's data structure. So for us, it's going to be our quote and our quote array that go in there. Like, it just sets up the data and which are also called objects and classes and everything that I talked about earlier. And then you have the view, which is all the user interface things, including storyboards and the zip files, which we haven't created yet, and also like things like table view cells, because you don't really do any work inside the table view cell as far as functions and things. You just kind of create the variables that fit with the with what you did in the storyboard. But I'll show you that later in the next lesson. And then there's the controller, which is what decides what the user is going to do with their input, and so that's pretty obvious in our view controller. That's where we do, it's where the bread is buttered, so to speak, in the view controller, and it's where we're going to perform all the functions and everything like that. So now, and this is probably like the easiest part of the whole thing. I'm going to take these two and control highlight or whatever, or shift highlight, however you like to do it, and then new group from selection. And in that group, it's going to be, just guess real quick, the model. Yes. And then here, we're going to take the launch screen and the main storyboard, and we're going to add that to the view, even though we haven't really done anything with the launch screen. And the launch screen is very self-explanatory. It's, when the app launches, what pops up first. Like, you ever notice, like, when you open an app that, you've closed out of, that it pops up and there's like a little, kind of more like a greeting screen or a loading screen right before you get to it. And then in here, we're going to put the app delegate. The app delegate does get a lot of use. It hasn't in this one, but in more complicated apps, the app delegate is essential. I'm going to root from selection. I'm going to call that the controller. And I don't know why I want it in that specific order, but I do. And there we go. So now we've conformed to the model view controller. And we're almost there with the author page of the quotes app. And yeah, so hey, we've created an object. And so in the next lesson, we're going to dive deep into the storyboard. We're going to learn about segues, and we're going to create a new table view controller to hold our quote, and we're going to set up auto layout and everything that has been known to give people fits, but I think we'll do just fine. So yeah, thanks guys.